New Year's Eve has always been a little overrated, in my opinion. It's like Valentine's Day with sequins. Too much build-up for something that usually ends with cold fries, awkward hugs, and you wondering if you even had fun. So when my friend Jeremy bailed on our dinner reservation an hour before we were supposed to meet, I didn't panic. I cracked a beer, opened Tinder, and figured if the night wasn't going to be exciting, at least it could be distracting. Enter Nate. I barely had to think before swiping right. He looked like he had no business being on an app. Sharp jaw, sleepy brown eyes, one photo of him in a messy white t-shirt pouring coffee in what looked like golden morning light. The kind of guy who probably read actual books and didn't mind mornings without talking. His bio said, "Not looking for anything serious. Just someone who doesn't mind staying up past midnight." I matched with him 15 minutes later. "Me? You really not into anything serious? Or is that just a way to avoid commitment until the champagne runs out?" Nate, bit of both. "But I make good pancakes if you survive the night." Me. Tempting. Nate, you free? Or you stuck at some glittery party pretending to have fun? 30 minutes later, I was on my way to his place. He buzzed me into a low-rise walk-up in Prospect Heights. The building smelled like old wood and someone's incense. His apartment was small, dimly lit, and warm in a way that made me instantly forget the freezing night outside. He answered the door barefoot, in joggers and a hoodie, tousled hair like he'd just rolled off a couch. "You came," he said. "You offered pancakes." I said back. We didn't do small talk. It wasn't that kind of night. He poured me a glass of red wine, and we barely made it to the couch before clothes started coming off. It was urgent and a little messy, the way good one-night stands are. Half kisses, half laughter, bodies figuring each other out like a puzzle you only plan to solve once. His sheets were soft. His skin was warmer than I expected. When it was over, we lay tangled, both of us catching our breath, not quite looking at each other. That moment right after always feels like a weird pause, like someone's supposed to say, "Thanks for coming," or, "Well, this was fun." I was about to sit up, find my jeans, maybe call a car, but he rolled onto his side and said, "Stay." I blinked. "You mean?" "I don't mean forever. Just the night." He paused. "Or until breakfast." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the idea of pancakes, after everything that had happened, seemed absurdly intimate to me. Still, I didn't leave. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe the way he looked at me like I wasn't just a distraction. I pulled the blanket back over us and settled in. We fell asleep close. Too close for strangers, really. I woke up to the sound of movement in the kitchen and the smell of something buttery. My phone was dead, my mouth dry, my brain foggy. But it was morning. New Year's morning, to be exact. And I was still here. Still naked. Still in his bed. I threw on my boxers and padded toward the noise. Nate stood by the stove, flipping something on a cast-iron skillet. Barefoot, shirtless, humming to himself like this was a perfectly normal day. Like we hadn't just met 6 hours ago. "Morning," he said without turning around. "You're actually making pancakes," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. "I wasn't lying," he said, glancing over his shoulder with a smirk. "You drink coffee, or are you one of those green juice people?" "Coffee. Black?" He poured me a mug like we'd done this before, like I wasn't supposed to be gone by now. So I said, sitting on a stool by the kitchen island, "You make breakfast for all your friends?" He slid a plate toward me, loaded with golden pancakes and a few slices of crisp bacon. "Only the ones who don't bolt before sunrise." The pancakes were actually amazing. Not just decent for a one-night stand. I'm talking golden, crisp edges, soft inside, and some kind of cinnamon thing going on that made it feel like someone's mom had taught him properly. I watched Nate drizzle maple syrup like this was Sunday brunch, and not the morning after a random hookup. So I said between bites, "You do this often? Make pancakes?" he asked, pretending not to get the implication. I raised an eyebrow. He shrugged. "Not really. I mean, I've had people stay over. But breakfast? Not usually." I nodded slowly, chewing. There was something refreshingly unbothered about him. Not in that emotionally detached way some guys get when they want you gone before your shoes are even on. No, Nate seemed relaxed. Like the fact I was still here didn't mess with his day at all. It threw me off a little. Seriously, though, I said, setting my fork down. I was fully planning to dip around 4 a.m. Figured you'd be out cold and I'd sneak out like a gentleman. I noticed, he replied, grinning. You shifted like you were about to make a run for it. But then you got comfortable again. Must have been the blanket, I smirked. Yeah, sure, the blanket. He poured more coffee into my mug without asking. It was the little things, you know? The not needing to be polite things. And suddenly I felt that pull. That weird, quiet thing where you realize you don't hate the idea of spending more time than you'd planned. Not just because he was hot. Not even because of the pancakes. Just because. I leaned back on the stool, stretching. What time is it? Almost 11. Shit, my sister's expecting me for brunch at noon. She's big on family tradition stuff, which means mimosas, charcuterie boards, and passive-aggressive commentary about my dating life. Sounds festive. Festive is one word for it. He leaned on the counter across from me, arms folded, studying me. So what are you going to tell them? Hungover? Met a guy? Pancakes were too good to leave? Depends, I said. You planning to disappear after this or keep making me breakfast until 2026? He laughed. An actual full laugh, not just a chuckle. His eyes crinkled a little when he did. I liked that more than I should have. I hadn't thought that far ahead, he said. Honestly, this was meant to be a one-night thing. I didn't even bother hiding my laundry pile before you came over. I did notice the socks on your bookshelf. Yeah, well, at least I didn't light a candle and pretend I'm classy. We both laughed, and the kitchen fell into this strange calm again. Like we were in the middle of something we hadn't really agreed to. The kind of pause you only notice in hindsight when the whole vibe has already shifted and you're too slow to catch it. I should probably go, I said, draining the last of my coffee. But, I hesitated. This was weirdly nice. Nate gave a small nod, still leaning on the counter. Yeah, it was. I stood, grabbing my shirt off the back of the stool, sliding it on. He watched me, not in a possessive way, but with this quiet curiosity, like he was trying to memorize the moment before it ended. I pulled on my jeans, checked my phone, realized it was still dead, and sighed. Can I borrow a charger? Top drawer, he said, motioning toward the living room, next to the weird candle I didn't light. As I plugged it in and waited for a sign of life, I noticed a photo on the wall. Nate, same sleepy eyes, standing with a group of friends on a mountain somewhere. I wondered which one was his ex. I wondered if he'd ever brought him pancakes. All right, I said, phone finally blinking back to life. I've got about 25 minutes to shower, change, and convince my family I'm still a functioning adult. Want a ride? I looked at him. What? I'm heading that way anyway. I was going to go for a walk, grab coffee. I can drop you off on the way. I opened my mouth to say no. I should have said no, but instead I said, sure. He drove an old Subaru that smelled faintly like cedar and something citrusy. The passenger seat had a small tear in it, and there was an empty LaCroix can rolling around in the footwell. The ride was quiet at first. He let me connect my phone and play something, and when I picked a random indie playlist, he just nodded like it made sense. At a red light, he finally asked, So, are you usually on Tinder for something fast, or were you hoping for something different last night? Honestly, for this. Distraction. Clean break from a crappy year. You? Same, or I thought it was. But now we're here, and I'm wondering if maybe the universe pulled something weird. I glanced at him, studying his profile as the car rolled forward. You mean like fate? No, God, no, he said, laughing. More like one of those nights where something feels too easy to ignore. I didn't reply. Because, yeah, it had been easy. Stupidly easy. Like we'd skipped all the awkward parts and landed on something comfortable. 10 minutes later, he pulled up in front of my building. Well, I said, unbuckling. Thanks for the ride, And the pancakes. And the... I gestured vaguely. He nodded. You're welcome. I hesitated, hand on the door. I don't normally do this either. What? Spend the night? Or leave with a full stomach? I grinned. Both. He pulled out his phone. You want to? I don't know. Maybe do this again sometime? I stared at him. You mean like breakfast again? He smirked. Or dinner. Or coffee. Something that doesn't end with you looking for your pants. I surprised myself by saying, yeah, okay. We exchanged numbers. No pressure. No weird promises. Just that quiet buzz of maybe. As I walked inside, I realized something. I'd started the night looking for a distraction, but I might have found a reason to stay. I didn't expect him to actually text. I figured maybe we'd exchange numbers, say something light like, last night was fun, and then let it fade, the way these things usually do. That's the unspoken rule of one-night stands, especially those born of champagne-fueled swipes and impulsive late-night decisions. But at 4:18 p.m., while I was halfway through pretending to enjoy my sister's charcuterie spread and fielding the fourth variation of anyone special in your life, my phone buzzed. Nate, you survived the brunch? I stared at the screen, smirking. My sister leaned over. Who's that? She asked. Work stuff, I lied, slipping the phone under the table. Me, barely. They started debating the ethics of plant-based meat, and I nearly choked on a grape. Nate, see? Told you pancakes were safer. Me. You make a strong case for replacing my family with carbs. He sent a laughing emoji. Then, a beat later, Nate. I meant what I said, by the way. Wouldn't hate seeing you again. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the message longer than I should have, like it might self-destruct if I blinked. Around me, the buzz of family noise went on. Forks clinking, wine pouring, the occasional bark of someone's dog underfoot. But it all kind of faded. Because I was still thinking about how his apartment smelled like cedar and coffee, how his eyes had crinkled when he smiled, and how, for the first time in a long while, a hookup hadn't felt like something I needed to forget right away. Me? Yeah, I'd like that too. We met again 4 nights later. It was supposed to be something casual. Drinks, maybe a walk, no pressure. But when he opened the door wearing that same gray hoodie from New Year's Eve, I felt my chest tighten a little in a way I didn't expect. Hey, he said, like this wasn't weird at all. Hey, I echoed, standing on his doormat like someone about to interview for a job they secretly wanted but didn't know how to ask for. He stepped aside and I walked in. His place looked the same, lived in but clean, a blanket thrown over the couch, a single glass in the sink like he hadn't bothered to pretend he was tidier than he was. You want wine or tea? He asked. Tea, I said, surprising both of us. He raised an eyebrow. Really? I shrugged. Wine felt like cheating. Nate smiled and disappeared into the kitchen. It should have been awkward. 2 near strangers pretending they weren't just here because they'd already seen each other naked. But it wasn't. We talked easily, sitting on the couch with mismatched mugs and a Spotify playlist humming low in the background. So what do you actually do? I asked. You never said. Freelance photo editing, he said. Weddings mostly. I used to shoot, but I burned out. Too many bridezillas? Too many grooms who want to look candid while obviously flexing. I laughed. So now you just edit them into looking less like posers? Exactly. I fix posture and hide hangovers. We sat there, sipping tea, talking about everything and nothing. Favorite books, worst dates, the weirdest things we'd ever cooked. I told him about the time I once tried to roast a chicken and forgot to take the bag of giblets out. He told me about getting dumped in a Target parking lot on his birthday. It was weird how comfortable it was. We weren't trying to impress each other, just existing, side by side, like this was normal. At one point, I looked at him and asked, did you plan for this? He blinked. What, tonight? No, I mean this. Me. Still being here. Nate set his mug down. Honestly, no. I expected you to leave like everyone else does. Which, no judgment. That's just how it goes, usually. But I didn't. Nope. You stayed. And then you made fun of my pancakes. I praised your pancakes. Mocked my syrup ratio, I smirked. Okay, that part's true. We were both quiet for a moment. Then I shifted slightly closer on the couch. Not much. Just enough that our knees touched. He didn't move away. It's funny how quickly you can go from this is nothing to maybe it's something. A week passed, then two, and I kept seeing him. Not every day, not in any dramatic, sweeping way, but in the quiet in-between hours. After work, before brunch, on nights when I would have normally gone home and scrolled until I fell asleep. He started texting me goodnight. I started leaving a toothbrush at his place. Neither of us said what we were doing. There were no labels, no "are we dating" talks. Just more mornings where we woke up together and more nights where I cooked while he did dishes. One Friday night, after we'd both had long days and didn't feel like going out, we ended up watching reruns on his couch. I fell asleep halfway through an episode, my head on his shoulder, and when I woke up, he was still there, still warm, still quietly breathing. And it hit me. This wasn't a one-night stand anymore. This was turning into something else. It happened in the quietest way possible. We were brushing our teeth. It was late, after midnight, maybe closer to 1. I'd crashed at Nate's again, not even intentionally. We'd started watching a documentary about haunted lighthouses, his pick, not mine. And somewhere around the third ghost sighting, I'd curled up on his couch with a blanket and his legs tucked under mine. When he offered for me to stay over, again, it wasn't even a question. I just nodded and followed him to the bathroom. We stood side by side at the sink, half asleep, foam in our mouths, scrubbing away like a couple who'd been doing this for months, not weeks. He bumped my elbow with his, made a face in the mirror. I smirked, rinsed, wiped my face with a towel that smelled like his laundry detergent, something woodsy and clean, and leaned against the doorframe while he spat into the sink. And then he said it, casually, like it was no big deal. You know, my friends think I'm seeing someone. I blinked. Are you? He looked at me in the mirror. I might be. I stared at him. He didn't laugh or play it off or add one of those sarcastic tags that would let me pretend it was just a joke. And now I had to answer. I didn't panic exactly, but I felt something tighten in my chest. The way it does when you realize you're standing at the edge of something that could go very, very right or very, very wrong. I swallowed. Do you want to be seeing someone? Yeah. He turned off the faucet and leaned against the other side of the doorframe, mirroring me. Yeah, I do. There was no smile on his face now. No smirk. Just this open, honest look that I wasn't sure how to handle because I'd never actually seen it from someone I'd met on a dating app. Not like this. Not this genuine. I could have made a joke. Could have laughed and said, let's not make things weird. But instead, I said, me too. The next morning, he made breakfast again. This time, it was eggs, toast, and strawberries that looked suspiciously fresh, as if he'd actually gone shopping on purpose. He set the plate in front of me with a casual, don't get used to this, but he was smiling when he said it. I already am, I said, poking at the toast. I've had more full breakfasts with you than I've had in the past year. That's depressing, he said. Welcome to freelance life and low standards. He sat across from me, coffee in hand, his hair still a mess from sleep. So what do we call this? This? I echoed, glancing between the eggs and him. Breakfast. Don't play dumb. I'm not, I said. But are we really doing the define the thing already? He gave a half smile. We don't have to. Just felt like we were on the same page last night. We are, I said. I just don't want to jinx it by calling it something too soon. He nodded. Fair. I looked down at the food. You know, I haven't had someone make me breakfast since college. And that guy burned the toast. I toast like a gentleman, Nate said, mock pride in his voice. And I don't ghost. That should be on your Tinder bio. Oh, I deleted the app. My eyes flicked up to his. Seriously? He nodded. Did it a few days ago. I stared at him. That feeling hit me again. Tight in the chest, warm under the ribs. The slow, steady realization that this wasn't just fun anymore. This was something growing, something settling in. I hadn't deleted mine yet, not because I was still using it, just because I hadn't thought about it. But in that moment, I pulled out my phone, opened the app, and hit delete, right there at the breakfast table. He raised his mug in a silent toast. Look at us, so responsible. I know, who even are we? We didn't call each other boyfriends, not yet. But that's what it started to feel like. The toothbrush stayed. Then a hoodie of mine showed up at his place. He started sending me reels during the day. Dumb memes, cat videos, weirdly specific TikToks about left-handed gay guys who love iced coffee and have too many unread emails. We went grocery shopping together once. It was a disaster. We disagreed on pasta brands and he judged me for buying off-brand cereal, but I couldn't stop smiling the whole time. Something about arguing over red sauce in the condiment aisle just made it feel even more real. And the closeness? It got better. Slower, more intimate, more connected. He started learning the way I moved. I started recognizing the way he bit his lip when he was holding back something soft. It wasn't just hooking up anymore. It was making space for each other. Then, one night, he introduced me to his best friend, Sam. We met at a bar. Casual drinks, no big deal. Nate started, glancing at me, and I finished it for him. I'm just the guy who makes him delete his dating apps, Sam laughed. Nate didn't correct me. But later that night, when we got home, he kissed me just a little differently, slower, like he was thinking about something. What? I asked. Nothing, he said. But he held on to me a little longer when we fell asleep, and that's where we were. Not officially official, but definitely not just a one-night stand anymore. And neither of us wanted it to end. It was bound to happen eventually. That shift, the first little wobble in the rhythm. Not a fight, not drama, just something off. It started on a Sunday night. We were supposed to meet at Nate's. I'd picked up Thai food, my bag was full of overnight clothes, and I'd just finished an exhausting weekend visiting my parents. I was craving quiet. Craving him. I hadn't seen Nate in 3 days, and for the first time since New Year's, I actually missed someone in a way that surprised me. I texted him when I was 10 minutes out. Me. Got your favorite noodles? Prepare to be worshipped. No reply. I shrugged it off. 5 minutes later, I buzzed his apartment. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. I waited outside his building, Thai food cooling in my hands, for 6 minutes before calling. No pickup. Straight to voicemail. By the 7th minute, I was halfway through the mental gymnastics of he's probably asleep and maybe something happened, when the door finally opened. And Nate stepped out. Not to let me in. To leave. He froze when he saw me. He had his jacket on, wallet in hand, and he wasn't alone. Some guy stood behind him, early 30s, shorter, well-dressed, holding a bag of what looked like leftover takeout. Not mine. Nate's eyes widened. Shit. I raised my eyebrows. Hey. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I didn't know you were coming. I texted you. My phone's on silent, he said quickly. I wasn't. This isn't. The guy behind him cleared his throat. I'm just going to wait downstairs. Nate nodded, not looking at him. The guy left, giving me a glance I couldn't read. I waited until we were alone in the doorway. The air between us was thick, not quite hot enough to be anger, but burning all the same. So I said carefully, want to tell me what that was? He opened his mouth, closed it, took a breath. He's my ex. Cool. It's not like that. Then what's it like? We used to date, he said, eyes steady. We haven't seen each other in months. He showed up today, said he was in the neighborhood. I didn't invite him in until, an hour ago. I didn't plan it. But you let him in. I didn't know what to do, Nate said, voice low. It felt weird to say no. You could have texted me. I know. I stood there, holding 2 bags of now lukewarm food, trying to breathe past the tightness in my chest. You didn't have to lie, I said. I didn't lie. You didn't tell me. That's different. It's not, Nate. We stood in silence, the sounds of traffic behind me, the glow of the hallway buzzing faintly above us. Finally, I handed him one of the bags. Enjoy the noodles, I said. I'm gonna go. Wait, he stepped forward, his hand brushing mine. Don't. I shook my head. I'm not mad you saw him. I'm upset that I found out like this. I didn't want to screw this up. Then don't hide shit from me. I'm not hiding. Really? I cut in, heat creeping into my voice. Because if you told me you still talk to your ex, or that he might show up, or that he might still be in the picture, I would have at least known what I was walking into. He didn't say anything. That said everything. I turned and left. He texted that night, a long message, apologizing, explaining, saying he panicked, that his ex had always had this hold on him, not in a romantic way, but in a way that made him feel like he owed him something. Closure, maybe. Or guilt. I didn't reply. Not because I was done, but because I didn't know what to say. 2 days passed. I stared at his name in my notifications more than once. I reread our last texts, replayed the look on his face when he saw me at the door, the way he reached for me, the way he didn't lie, but also didn't tell the truth. Then, Wednesday night, he knocked on my door. Not texted, not called, knocked. I opened it to find him standing there, holding a familiar paper bag. Pancakes. I brought peace offerings, he said. I let him in. He set the bag down, looked at me, and said, I messed up. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Yeah, I didn't sleep with him. I didn't even want to. I was confused. I said nothing. He continued, I've been trying so hard to act like I've got this casual thing under control, but I don't, because I like you, and I was scared that if I made that obvious, you'd walk away. I told you I liked you too. I know, but it felt too good. I didn't think I deserved it. I let out a breath. I just wanted honesty. I know, he said, and I'm ready to give that now. A pause. I want this, he added, not just breakfast and sleepovers. I want the whole thing. Dishes in the sink, dumb fights, Sunday grocery runs. You. I looked at him. He looked scared. I didn't delete my apps because I was trying to prove something, he said. I did it because I didn't want to risk missing something real. I let the silence stretch. He didn't fill it, just waited. Then I said, next time, tell me the whole story, even the parts that make you look bad. I promise. I picked up the bag of pancakes, cracked it open, took a bite. Still warm. Okay, I said finally. Let's start over. You never really think about how much someone new in your life changes your routines until you try to fit them into your old ones. 2 weeks after the pancake peace offering, things between Nate and I had fallen into something that felt surprisingly solid. We weren't official in a Facebook relationship status kind of way, but I wasn't seeing anyone else, and neither was he. My toothbrush stayed at his. His hoodie lived on my desk chair. I'd even started remembering how he liked his coffee. 1 sugar, splash of oat milk, not too hot. It was domestic in the best possible way. And then, my best friend Liam came to town. Liam and I had been close since high school. We'd gone to different colleges, moved to different cities, but we always checked in. And every few months, we'd crash at each other's place for a weekend and catch up the way guys do. Bad food, late-night walks, no real emotional depth unless someone was drunk. He was only in town for 2 nights. I told Nate I wanted them to meet. You sure? He asked when I brought it up over takeout. I don't want to, hijack your friend time. I want you to meet him, I said. He's the kind of person who gives me a hard time about everyone I date. If you survive him, you're basically invincible. Nate smirked. Oh, good. A test. Consider it. Quality assurance. Liam showed up on a Friday night, bag over his shoulder, same sarcastic energy he's always had. You look happier, he said the second he walked in. You didn't even sit down yet. Still, you've got that post-getting-laid glow. Thanks for that. He dumped his stuff in the guest room and cracked open a beer. So where's this mystery man? He's not a mystery. He'll be here in an hour. Great. I get to interrogate him sober. When Nate arrived, I opened the door to Liam already standing behind me with his beer and a grin. So you're the breakfast guy, Liam said. Nate blinked. I guess I am? Liam turned to me. He's cuter than the last one. Nate looked amused. I feel like I'm being judged, but also weirdly approved of. Welcome to being my best friend's anything, Liam said. I haze everyone. We ordered pizza, had beers, talked about everything from bad Tinder dates to high school pranks to the time Liam broke his wrist trying to jump from the roof into a kiddie pool. For most of the night, it was good, easy, but somewhere between the second beer and the third slice of pizza, Liam pulled me aside in the kitchen while Nate was grabbing something from the bathroom. Hey, he said, lowering his voice, can I ask you something? Sure. You serious about him? I blinked. Yeah, I think so. Liam frowned slightly. He's cool, but I get a vibe. What kind of vibe? He hesitated. Like there's something he's not saying. Liam, I know I'm overprotective, but you've been burned before. That was different. You sure? I didn't answer. Not because I wasn't sure, but because I hated how easily his doubt slipped into me. Like it was waiting there, a shadow I'd almost outrun. I'm not saying he's bad news, Liam added. You know me, I read people. You also thought my ex was chill, and he ended up stealing my AirPods. Okay, fair. I laughed, trying to shake off the tension. He's a good guy, Liam. He messed up once, and we dealt with it. Liam looked at me. You happy? Yeah, I am. Then that's all I care about. We rejoined Nate in the living room, and nothing was said for the rest of the night. But the seed had been planted. The next morning, Liam left early for a work thing and wouldn't be back until late. Nate stayed over again, and for the first time in weeks, we were just alone together. We made breakfast, again. This time, I took the lead. Scrambled eggs, toast, and fruit. You're getting fancy, Nate said, watching me in the kitchen, trying to impress you. It's working. He leaned back on the counter and took a sip of coffee. Your friend's cool. He liked you. He said that? Okay, no, but he didn't glare at you, which is basically a rave review. Nate laughed. But the moment passed. Something lingered behind his eyes. A hesitation. What's up? I asked, turning off the burner. He looked down at his mug. Do you ever feel like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop? I froze. He glanced up. Sorry. That was a weird question. No, I said quietly. It wasn't. There was silence between us again, the kind that felt like a breath being held. I've been thinking about something, he said, and I don't want to keep it from you. My chest tightened. I wasn't totally honest with you about my ex. I stayed still. We broke up 6 months ago, but we didn't really stop talking until a few weeks before we matched. Okay, I said slowly. I didn't think I owed anyone anything, but now I'm here, and I like you, and I don't want you thinking I was fresh out of a clean break. I nodded. Did you sleep with him after we met? No, he said immediately. I swear. I believed him. Okay, I said again. He waited. That's it. You told me, I said. You could have not. But you did. He exhaled. I thought you'd be mad. I don't love it, I admitted. But I'd rather have the truth than feel like I'm building something on sand. He moved closer, slid his arms around my waist. I really like you. I really like you too. We stood there in the kitchen, wrapped up in each other, and I realized something. It wasn't about pancakes or sleepovers or what we called this thing between us. It was about whether we could tell the truth, even when it was messy. Even when it made things complicated. Because maybe love wasn't always lightning bolts and fireworks. Maybe it was just choosing someone, even when it wasn't easy. Valentine's Day was 2 weeks away. We hadn't talked about it. Neither of us were particularly sappy. Nate called it the worst combination of capitalism and forced sentiment, and I wasn't far off in my own opinion, but still, it loomed. A kind of emotional checkpoint. Something unspoken but heavy. You can't start dating someone in January and ignore February. We weren't avoiding it, exactly, but we were definitely orbiting it. Things between us were good, steady. I knew his morning routine better than my own. I could tell when he was stressed, just by how he stirred his coffee. And he'd started texting me selfies from work, sometimes full of editing software screenshots, other times just him making a face with a caption like, "Client from hell, send noodles." But even with all of that, something had shifted since the night he told me about his ex. Not in a bad way, not in a breaking kind of way. More like the honeymoon fog had burned off. We were seeing each other more clearly, and it scared both of us. That's when it happened. It was a Thursday night. I'd invited Nate over after work. We ordered ramen, threw on some low-effort reality show, and collapsed on the couch like we always did. At some point, my phone buzzed. I checked it absent-mindedly. Liam, so I'm getting drinks with someone who says they know Nate. Should I be nervous? I frowned. Me? Who? Liam, David. Said they used to date. Guy's chatty. Me. Tell me everything. But Liam didn't reply right away. Instead, I looked over at Nate, who was half watching the show, half scrolling through his phone. I said nothing, waited, let the air fill with silent questions. A few minutes later, Liam texted back. Liam. He said Nate ghosted him after telling him they should talk about getting back together. Then went dark. Sound familiar? I felt my stomach twist. I didn't say anything for a long minute. Just stared at the text, letting it settle in that awful, slow-burning way. Finally, I asked, Hey, can I ask you something? Nate looked up. Yeah? Did you tell David you wanted to get back together? Like, right before we met? He froze. And that was the answer. I didn't think it would come up, he said quietly. It wouldn't have. Except Liam ran into him. And now I'm sitting here wondering if you just pivoted to me when that didn't work out. Nate set his phone down. It wasn't like that. You told me you were done, that it was over. It was, I didn't lie about that. But you left out the part where you were, what, testing the waters? He didn't say anything. That night, when I showed up with noodles and David was there, was that the first time he'd been over since your breakup? Nate looked away. No, I said. Didn't think so. I stood up, too restless to stay seated. The room suddenly felt smaller. My skin prickled with something that wasn't anger, exactly. More like disappointment with an edge. You should have told me. I didn't know what we were yet, Nate said, voice low. I didn't want to ruin it before it started. But you did anyway. I shot back, sharper than I meant to. Because now everything feels off, like I was plan B and didn't even know it. You weren't. Then why not be honest? Because I was scared, he said, louder now. Okay? I didn't expect to like you this much. I didn't expect you to matter. That stopped me. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. I didn't know how to let go of someone who knew me for 2 years and still didn't see me. And then you show up, on a dumb app, on a dumb night, and you looked at me like I wasn't broken. You're not, I said softer. He looked at me, eyes tired, voice quiet. I want you, not him, not some version of the past that I think I should chase. I want you, and I should have said that from the start. I exhaled, heart pounding, hands clenched. This sucks, I muttered. I know. I hate how right this felt. I still think it's right. Then prove it, I said. Not with breakfast, not with sleepovers, with truth. With showing up. He nodded slowly. Okay. And you tell David too. I already did, he said. I told him last week that it's over, that I met someone, that I want to try. I stared at him. You sure? He stepped closer. I've never been more sure of anything. I didn't answer right away. Then I stepped forward too. And kissed him. Valentine's Day came and went. We didn't do flowers or heart-shaped boxes, no Instagram posts, no fancy dinner. Instead, he made pancakes. I brought coffee. And we sat on the floor in his living room, plates in our laps, laughing at a dumb joke I don't even remember now. But I remember how it felt. Like something real. Like something chosen. Not a one-night stand. Not plan B. Just us. Spring came quietly. One day I was wearing a hoodie and boots. The next I was rolling my sleeves up, walking next to Nate down Eastern Parkway, with iced coffees in hand. That's the thing about New York. It never announces the season change. It just hands you sunlight and lets you figure it out. By then, things between us had settled into something that felt real, in the best way. No big dramatic titles. No conversations where we asked, "What are we?" while staring at ceilings. It was just him and me. Tuesday night dinners, Sunday morning pancakes, movie marathons that turned into falling asleep halfway through and waking up with his leg tangled over mine. It wasn't perfect. We had moments. He could be emotionally vague when something bothered him. I could shut down when I felt like I was being misunderstood. We had a blow-up over something stupid. He left his dishes in my sink after I'd just cleaned, and it turned into a silent standoff that lasted 2 days. But we talked. We apologized, we stayed. That's what it kept coming back to. Not the words, not the closeness, not the breakfast, but the staying. Because somewhere between that New Year's match and this lazy spring afternoon, he stopped being the guy the first texted after a party and became the person I thought about when something good or bad happened in my day. He was the one I wanted to call when I found out I got that freelance gig I'd been chasing for months. He was the one I sent a photo to when I made a sandwich that looked suspiciously gourmet. He was the one I fell asleep next to more often than not. And one night as we lay in bed, neither of us sleeping, he said it. Not in a moment of passion, not after chillin'. Just in the dark. Quiet. Honest. I think I love you. It was almost a whisper, like he wasn't even sure he was saying it out loud. I turned toward him, heart in my throat. I know I do, I said back. The first time I brought him to my parents' house, my mom tried to act cool and failed miserably. She offered him cookies before he even sat down. My dad asked if he liked baseball. My sister pulled me aside and said, "Okay, this guy, the first get, don't mess it up." He didn't. And neither did I. On the 1-year anniversary of our first match, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Of course. But this time, they were shaped like hearts. Poorly shaped. Messy. One looked vaguely like Australia. But I smiled anyway, because they were his pancakes. Still golden. Still too much syrup. Still perfect. I can't believe it's been a year, I said, sitting at the kitchen table, hair a mess, wearing his hoodie. I can, he said, sliding into the seat next to me. Feels like it's always been you. I looked at him, and I knew. This wasn't just some random swipe. This wasn't a hookup that overstayed its welcome. This was home.